From downtown Jacksonville to the suburbs of Clay and Nassau counties, Florida's 4th Congressional District is one of the state's swing right seats. Cook rates it a Republican +5, and it's represented by Republican Aaron Bean, a former state senator and Fernandina Beach mayor who won re-election in 2024. Today, we're talking to a Democrat who says the map can be competitive with the right message. Michael Kirwan is a lifelong North Florida resident and longtime attorney now running in the Democratic primary for Florida's 4th District. His campaign is centered on Congress taking back its power, cost of living relief, especially eliminating tariffs, funding Social Security and Medicare, and creating good jobs for his district. Early signs of viability. Kirwan launched in mid-September and reported raising more than $250,000 in just 2 weeks. That's attracting attention. This is positioning him as the leading Democratic fundraiser in the race. If he wins the primary, he'll face Congressman Bean, who brings deep local name recognition and a broad GOP network after 2 decades in Florida government. It's an uphill contest in a Republican-leaning district, but one that will test messages on the rule of law, as well as affordability, accountability, and growth along the First Coast. Michael Kirwan joining us in just one moment. Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker. Michael Kirwan, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, TJ, for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you today.
So why are you running for Congress?
Well, that's a question I'm asked all the time. Congress is such a divisive place, and people often say, why are you spending your time pursuing that? And what I view this as, it's an opportunity to give back to our community. I'm fortunate to be in a spot where I can do this. I see what's happening in DC is so chaotic today and really going against the values and beliefs that I hold dear, and I think most Americans hold dear. And so I think it's time for us to have a course correction in DC, and I plan to assist with that correction.
Now, when you talk to your neighbors and friends and you're active in your community, what are they upset about? I also live in Florida, south of you, and there's a sense among a lot of voters, I hear that they don't focus on it. They're not thinking about it. There's not a lot of outrage about what's going on.
Well, at least in my circle of friends and supporters in the community that I interact with, there's a growing dissatisfaction, a growing fear of the direction that we're going down. And it's the fear that we're losing our democratic freedoms. We have an authoritarian as president, and the Republican Party, the elected Republican leaders, are all kowtowing, and there's no longer the traditional checks on the president's power. And so that's a great concern. Affordability is a great concern as well. And a lot of people are really struggling to get by. And they're struggling more so than ever. In large part, it's due to the tariffs and the chaos that's creating.
And how does that play out in a unique way in Jacksonville? Your district would include at least the surrounding areas. You have a huge port there. Do these tariffs have any unique impact on people in your district?
They do. And it really is a nationwide problem, but Jacksonville is feeling it in particular because so much of our trade activity in Jacksonville is directly linked to the ports. We've also got a great highway and rail network, and so we're a logistics hub. But from shipping via the port, April and May created lots of chaos, and that chaos has continued. Shipping volumes are zigzagging back and forth. No one is really certain of what prices will be, and so it's not helping our businesses make plans for the future.
Now, you mentioned people are concerned about rise of authoritarianism, and that's near and dear to my heart and a lot of the viewers and listeners of this show. But Democrats have been harping on that this whole year and did during the campaign last year. And it seems like the only thing that really resonated was Jimmy Kimmel getting kicked off the air. That people were upset about, using military officers attacking citizens on American soil. A lot of people seem okay with that, but a comedian getting stopped, that's too far. What do you think? How do you really communicate problem with authoritarianism or the problem of not following the rule of law? It seems so abstract to a lot of citizens.
Well, it is abstract, but fortunately, it's sinking in with a large number of our fellow Americans. Tomorrow will be the next No Kings Day protest, and it's expected that that's going to be the largest nationwide demonstration in our country's history. It's going to top the last No Kings Parade protest. It's going to top the Women's March back in 2017. So the fact that we can get over 5 million people showing up and protesting what's happening is evidence that it is sinking in, that the direction the country is taking is a direction that we don't want.
Now, I personally don't like protest. I've never been to one. I'm going tomorrow. I mean, I consider myself a sane, sensible centrist, and I feel I have no choice. Are you concerned about this messaging from Stephen Miller at the Justice Department that every day they seem to be inching closer and closer to saying, if you oppose Trump, you are a terrorist. And if you're a Democrat, it's an extremist organization, according to Stephen Miller. I mean, it seems like they're not that far away of just labeling any Democrat a terrorist.
I agree that that's the direction that this administration is going in. You look at what they're doing with the IRS, as far as directing the IRS to investigate and pursue criminal charges against more liberal organizations. These are steps toward a one-party system. This is not what traditional Republicans or Democrats have envisioned or believe is best for this country. This is not what our founding fathers envisioned. So every day that they take these types of actions, bring more and more people toward my campaign and toward the Democrats at large.
Okay, so what's going to galvanize voters? Because we've seen so many people, so many pundits talk about the hapless Democrats, they're without leaders. But every so often, one cuts through. Now, you're not a socialist by any means, but we have seen in New York City, the Democratic Socialist, who is the Democratic nominee for mayor, really garnered tremendous amounts of attention by focusing on affordability and by using social media in a creative way. And let's be honest now. Donald Trump is very creative in how he gets attention and uses social media. How do you see really getting attention? What's going to be the trick to get people paying attention to these issues? And do you have any role models in the Democratic Party or anywhere in the political spectrum these days for doing so?
Well, that's a great question, TJ. And as you're aware, and hopefully your viewers are aware, I view myself as a moderate. And I think 80% of the country are moderates. Moderates tend not to get people excited, not to arouse lots of passion. But I think what we're seeing now are just such extremes that people are hungering for, okay, I want a rational person. I want a person that does what's best for the country. And you know what? Being in the middle, being a moderate, has a lot of appeal in these crazy times. And so my thought is simply turning to the grassroots, as far as like, you see the chaos that we're experiencing now. That's not working. I think there is a groundswell of people wanting moderates to return to power, to basically make rational decisions on behalf of all of us. After the holidays, I'm going to be launching a much more active social media campaign. And so the campaigns now are waged in large part via social media. And so you'll see my campaign being much more active in that. But I retired I retired in September to dedicate my full time to this campaign. And so I am spending every waking minute making phone calls and knocking on doors, having interviews like this, and meeting people. And so I think that type of activity, meeting people one-on-one, is going to help convince the voters of the 4th Congressional District that they should be excited about my campaign.
Now, you just used a word that aroused my attention, rational. You said people want rational leaders. I agree with you, people say that, but there's often a disconnect between what people say they want and what they actually want. I can say, I want to go to a restaurant that has super healthy food that will help me lose weight, be good for my cholesterol, salt intake. I can say that. But what happens when people go out to restaurants? So they go to the Cheesecake Factory. They want the 2,000 calorie appetizer with lots and lots of sugar. And I've seen this in politics. People have historically said, I don't want a candidate who uses negative ads. And then they run for, or they vote for the person with negative ads. You are now entering a field that most observers would say is controlled by the non-rat. Politics is just not rational. How do you make that jump from a world of corporate law where, yes, there can be cutthroat attorneys and highly competitive, but you just never went in front of a judge and made an argument citing law cases that you knew were just lies? A politician can do that. You can be attacked for, having failed to feed your daughter breakfast for years, even though you don't have a daughter. Someone could just make that charge. How are you going to make that adjustment from being in a world of the rational to the irrational, which is where politics is today?
Well, TJ, that's an unfortunate indictment of where we are. And, I think people are ready for a change. And emotionally, are they there yet? Will they allow their emotions to overrule their rational decision making? And that's the challenge. I feel like I have led a squeaky clean life. So I am not worried about anyone making accusations or attacking me in this campaign. If they do, I know they're mistruths, and we will highlight that on this campaign. I think we can appeal to people's emotions actually by showing what the facts are and how outrageous they're being treated. We can point out the big, beautiful bill is indeed a bill, and it's a bill that so many Americans are going to be paying. It not only increased the national deficit by $4 trillion, it is making the tax system more regressive. It is giving a benefit to the top 0.1%. We're no longer really focused on the 1%. It's the top 0.1% that is really benefiting under the decisions coming out of Washington.
Hey, let me ask you about the big, beautiful bill, because if I walk down the streets of where I live in Florida and I asked 100 people, tell me what's in the big, beautiful bill that you think is harmful to people, I don't think I would get any two people saying the same thing. And most of them would say, I don't really know. How do you make that real to people that this was a problem?
Well, I think Congress is making it real right now by showing the impact to people's health care, that as a result of the big, beautiful bill, so many people will be losing health care or unable to afford their health care going forward. So I think that is probably the best illustrator of the negative effects of the big, beautiful bill. I think,
and of course, the irony there, the most eloquent Democratic spokesman on that issue these days is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican, who very vividly says, my own 2 adult children are going to see their health insurance premiums double, and I'm worried about it. She really brought it down to a personal level that made it quite compelling. You just said something a moment. You've had a squeaky clean life. Well, John Kerry would say he had an exemplary career in the military, volunteering for the Vietnam War, getting a Purple Heart against a draft dodger like George W. Bush, and still the way they used outside PACs advertising, they shifted that narrative to make it seem like Kerry was the draft dodger. So I'm not sure leading a squeaky clean life even matters anymore to a lot of voters, especially when you look at who's in the White House. This is a moment for me to give full disclosure. So if you're watching this, I play it straight. I'm not here as a partisan. I'm here to give you objective analysis of top, typically business, technology news, culture news of the day through a communication and personal development lens. And I can tell you, I wanted to bring Michael on today because I've known him for 41 years. I actually know that he is someone who is a level-headed man of integrity, smart, hardworking. he's basically everything the polls would say people want in a congressman. He is very, very moderate. He's the Sunday school teacher I'm not. He's the guy who always studied the extra few hours every night 44 years ago when we first met, so that he got into Harvard Law School. He played by the rules. He has been extraordinarily successful. He's given to his community. So voters, here's your chance. If you say you want someone moderate, hardworking, not extreme, I'm here switching hats here from the host to being, this is a testimonial. I can't be quiet. So if you are a voter in Jacksonville, you need to give this person very serious consideration, because I've seen him under pressure. I well remember, Michael, you might not even remember this, but you and I and another friend were in your canoe in a lake in Jacksonville. This is 40 years ago. I foolishly told our third friend, hey, canoes don't sink easily. You could stand up and go back and forth, it wouldn't sink, which, by the way, is true in canoes made of aluminum. We were not in an aluminum canoe. We were in a fiberglass canoe. Our friend Rich stands up. He says, you mean I can do this? Boop. The boat sinks. Wallets are everywhere. Keys are everywhere, sinking. The boat's going down. This would have been a perfect time. If I had been Michael, I would have screamed at me saying, TJ, you imbecile, why did you tell him to do that? If I had been Michael, I would have screamed at Rich and said, you imbecile, why would you stand up and sink the boat? All of our stuff is gone. But that's not how Michael handled it. He laughed, he chuckled, he fought with us to rescue the boat, to rescue things, not a cross word from him, not no anger, no recriminations. And he really, I've seen him under fire and he reacts. Well, I also know he's a man of kindness. Now, he does a lot in the community, but he has given me shelter in his home. He's fed me. He's never asked for a thing. And I can see this is a man who actually walks talk when it comes to giving back. Michael, tell us about your service in the community, because some people have heard from one of your opponents just saying, oh, he's a corporate attorney and spends all of his time helping rich people. What are you proudest of when it comes to working in your own community?
Well, TJ, those are awfully kind comments and some good memories you shared there. I am delighted that I've had the life that I've had. I've had a wonderful family life. And due to my family life and professional life, I've been able to get involved civically. And whether it was being active at my church, teaching Sunday school to youth and adults, Cub Scouts, things like that. But on the civic side, I was able to assist with drafting the city's ethics code and being chairman of the ethics commission.
What's that?
In the 90s. The city of Jacksonville's ethics code.
What's ethics? This is 2025, and the concept of ethics in government seems to be something that most people are not taking seriously anymore. Tell me what was put into the provision and how is it made for better government?
Well, I'll share this, that there is no city of Jacksonville employee that would ever think it's permissible to accept a Boeing 747 from a foreign country. We have clear guidelines, practices in place for acceptable behavior by our city's employees. And it's worked well for the past 35 years. I was fortunate to be on our.
And a full disclosure, I have taken gifts from Qatar, but it was because I was doing media training for the Queen at the time, or they have a different name for it, but essentially the Queen, and she was nice enough to give me some of the tastiest dates I've ever had.
Well deserved, and you're not running.
But she did not offer me a 747. Please continue.
Yeah. So I've also been involved with a group called Scenic Jacksonville, and that has really worked to improve the aesthetics of our natural and built environment in Jacksonville. I was president of that for the last couple of years before stepping off to run for this campaign.
For our viewers around the country who maybe haven't been to Jacksonville, or maybe they went as kids as they were driving on the way to Disney, tell them about it, because I still remember my first time going to Jacksonville, maybe 1985. There was still, I'm trying to be polite here, the odor of the paper mill. and it was kind of seen as a down and out city. That's all changed. And I mean, it was even the late 80s. You had the beautiful river walk and fun outdoor
Yeah,
cafes, restaurants. Tell us what it
so
looks like now.
Jacksonville has come along. Jacksonville has been discovered. Northeast Florida has been discovered, whether it's Amelia Island or Green Cove Springs. They're attracting lots of retirees. It's attracting lots of people that want to start their families here. It's a great place to raise a family, but it's also a great quality of life. And Scenic Jacksonville's played an impact in that. And one of the things that we did was we had a municipal charter amendment made to regulate our signs and billboard. We had over 1,800 billboards removed from our county. We had a tree canopy ordinance adopted to further enhance preserving and encouraging trees in the community. And then a number of us, 7 of us, in fact, formed a group called Riverfront Parks Now. And we basically have championed for riverfront parks to be developed along our downtown. It was property that was owned by the city and was just laying fallow. Nothing was happening with this property. One failed development after another. And 7 years ago, we approached City Hall about putting in parks to complement the developments going in across the street and encouraging people downtown. And there wasn't a single person in City Hall that liked that idea. Well, last year, our mayor and city council approved over $200 million to be spent on developing these riverfront parks, and they're well underway now. So I feel like that's a good example of people in the community, if they want to get something done, they can do that. And we did that by having a shared vision of how tomorrow could be better because of these actions. And we did it by building a coalition. We had 14 nonprofits come together to champion these riverfront parks. And it was amazing to see the members of the community coming out to support this idea and to basically say, hey, we have tried private development along these parcels. The city has subsidized these private developers and they've all failed. And as a result, we have foreclosed and taken back this property. Let's do something different. And it's happening, and our downtown will be better for it. Our way of life and community will be better. So quite proud of that.
Now, you started this discussion by talking about family, the importance of family. We live in a time when a lot of kids don't know one of their parents or only have one parent, and that can be a tough upbringing. I think you and I have something similar in that we both had, lucky to have great parents. I think my father was an engineer, if I recall yours was too. I know your mother, like my mother, was very influential. My mother, and people maybe could say she's crazy, she told me every day when I was a little boy, Timmy, as she called me, you're the smartest boy in the world and you're the smartest boy in the universe. I mean, she said that again and again. I know your mother was perhaps your biggest fan when she was alive. I well remember her sending you news clippings about what's going on in Jacksonville when you were 18 years old and you went off to college, and you were again, full disclosure, you were my next door neighbor in our dorm at Duke University. Did this ultimately convince you to move back to Jacksonville? Because let's face it, you're a graduate of the top law school in America. You could have easily gone the route of going to New York City, being a part of the swells in New York City, and instead you went back to the community that you were raised in. What role did your mother play in that? And what ultimately made you decide to go back to Jackson?
Well, that's a great question, TJ, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about my mother. I think she and my father were great parents, and they not only provided for me, but they instilled the right values and gave me the right confidence and outlook on approaching life. And you're right. My mother wanted me to come back to Jacksonville, and she and my dad would send me.
I mean, that was a 7-year lobby campaign, wasn't it?
It really was. It was, and it worked. I loved my life growing up in Jacksonville. I love the community, and I still do, of course. And they helped convince me that, hey, this is a great place to live. This is a great place to raise a family, to have a career. and they are spot on. And it was so nice having them close by. As my wife Beth and I, we had our two sons, and my parents attended every sporting event possible for my kids, and my kids had the greatest family rooting section at every school event, family event, and it was great to have my parents play a meaningful role with my children. So I can't say enough about the family I've came from, and as well as the family that Beth and I have created. And so it's been very good. Thank you, TJ, for letting me speak.
Any unique challenges? I mean, again, you and I were lucky. I mean, I never had to worry about, am I going to have a meal tonight? Are we going to have to move in the middle of the night because we can't afford rent? I mean, I was not rich growing up, but my father's an engineer. There was always a professional middle class existence. A lot of your constituents in this 4th Congressional District don't have that. What can a congressman do? Even assuming your party takes control again, it's not going to control the White House or likely the Senate. What can you do to actually create a more stable personal economy for individuals in the district?
TJ, that is probably the question that more people are concerned about than even the constitutional crisis that we're seeing happening in DC. It's why we're seeing this swing of the pendulum far as, okay, we'll have Biden in, no, we'll have Trump in. Now we're going to have someone else in after Trump. And it's so many people that are struggling with their day-to-day affordability issues, and keeping that roof over their heads, keeping their family fed, that is causing a lot of this political turmoil. And so how do we address the economic turmoil? Well, I think having a Congress that is aware is the first step. I recently went through the Leadership Jacksonville program in Jacksonville. It was a great program. It's a year-long event where they bring 55 people in to learn about Jacksonville and the issues it's facing. And one of the sessions really highlighted this issue, and it focused on the United Way's ALICE campaign. And that's really an awareness campaign. And ALICE is an acronym for Assets Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. And so many people in our district, the 4th Congressional District, are within that ALICE demographic. If I recall the statistics, it's about 45% of the 4th Congressional District is viewed as an ALICE population. And so these people are playing by the rules. They've got a job, oftentimes 2 or 3 jobs, and they're still struggling to make ends meet. And that needs to change. TJ, when you and I first got out of college, we were in the ALICE demographic. Everyone is in that ALICE demographic. You got your first job. You're never sure how tomorrow's going to work.
I made a princely $5 an hour at a PR firm in New York City in 1985.
Yeah. But you and I were fortunate enough to grow out of and work out and advance out of this ALICE demographic. And we're not seeing that happen. We're not seeing the same percentage of people moving beyond the ALICE demographic. And that's got to change. And the whole country needs to be focused on that. Even the people that are not in the ALICE demographic. The top 1%, or about 0.1%, they need to be aware that their future prosperity is so focused or so hinged upon everyone prospering and everyone being able to be good consumers. And because we need good jobs to make that happen. And it's jobs and stable employment that allow people to have good, healthy families. And you mentioned having single parents and the struggles they face, and they do. And we're not going to necessarily fix everyone's family, but by providing the basic fundamentals for a sound economy, for encouraging jobs, for encouraging the maintenance of a social safety net, we're going to provide that opportunity for people to not only get by, but to have a chance to advance. And that's what we all want and believe. We're not focused on, we just need to have a social safety net. That's all. We need a pathway for people, put in hard work, follow the rules, and you can advance and improve tomorrow can be better.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I don't have the answer to it. I haven't seen any Democrat really have a good answer to it. But the conventional wisdom, I happen to believe this is true, that Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, those in a more socialistic mindset, view people as fundamentally economic actors who do things in an economically rational way. Therefore, you make economic arguments, you wage class warfare, essentially. And most other experts would say, well, this obviously doesn't work. Look at Rand Paul representing Kentucky. Look at how the voters of Mississippi and Alabama and Kentucky and West Virginia, who are the poorest citizens in our country, always vote for Republican legislators, the House, the Senate, and they're voting for people who consistently cut their benefits and cut taxes on the wealthy. There seems to be a complete disconnect, and Democrats don't seem to really have the skill set of communicating the economic value that they are providing to people who are not a part of, forget the top 0.1%. I mean, if you're not in the top 10%, you could easily make the case from a purely rational standpoint. It doesn't make any sense for someone in the bottom 90% to ever vote for Republican. But obviously, Democrats are not getting 90% of the vote. There's the joke now that the farmers are saying, hey, I voted for the racism, not for the tariffs, putting me out of business. It doesn't seem to be connecting. So I'm wondering if you've given any thought to how do you really convince a guy, let's say it's a white guy in your district who's struggling, got 2 or 3 jobs, can barely make ends meet, has no pension, is worried about even paying for their health care, but they like sort of the macho of, oh, MAGA is cool, it's tough. Trump is my kind of guy. He likes beautiful women and he's not politically correct. How do you convince someone like that it's just not in their economic interest to vote for the incumbent Congressman Aaron Bean, the Republican there? We'll be talking more about his background in just a moment. But let me toss that question to you. And it's not a question with an easy answer. I recognize that.
Well, thanks for acknowledging that, TJ, that if it was easy, it would have already been done. We've got the Republicans have a playbook where they've been following for at least the past 40 years of using deception and voter suppression. And it's basically, hey, it's never your fault. It's the other guy's fault, the other guys that are conspiring against you. It's some minority that is causing you to not get your due. And they really have hyped this. And the words that you see coming out of DC now are so deceptive. I mean, some would say outright lies. And you don't need decoder glasses or decoder hearing aids to know a lie when you see and hear the lie. These are whoppers of lies that we're getting now. And they're saying them with straight faces. And we've got to do a better job.
It doesn't seem to bother people, though. Why is that? There was a time, if I just said, Michael Kirwan eats dogs and cats in his neighborhood, that would be enough to sort of eliminate me as a viable political player. These days, seems like it'd get any votes.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see. It's disappointing, but we can't give up. We have to keep making the case that deep down, you know better. You know that this is a lie. You know that what they're telling you isn't working, because is your paycheck going up? Are you able to buy more things? And you're not. So what they're pitching you is just deceit. This is not working. And so what we need to do is show people that there is a better way, that you can have an alternative, and that you don't need to be oppressing the minorities out there. They're not the reason why you're not doing better economically. We also need to show that we're the party of everyone. We have the country's best interest at heart, and that everyone will prosper. And they just need to follow the rules and work hard. And no one thinks that things are easy in life, but we're the party that is showing that there is a way forward, that tomorrow can be brighter. And I agree, TJ. We've got our work cut out for us. Telling lies has worked, unfortunately, and we just need to do a better job of dispelling those lies, or presenting a better story, and saying, keep telling your lies. But
what is it? What is a better story? Because you just mentioned that the Democrats should be the party for everyone, and that's certainly not the perception among a lot of voters. Many voters, if you look at surveys after the last election, said they perceive the Democrats as the party of special interest, the party of transgender, of they, them,
yeah,
of unlimited immigration. And if you are a white person, a white Christian, essentially, you're not even invited to the party. That's the perception that we hear from Fox News and top Republicans on a daily basis. How do you fight that perception? How do you create a new brand for the Democratic? It's hard for any one candidate to do it. But if I could anoint you head of the Democratic Party right now, and you had to do that for 2 years, how would you go about rebranding the party in a way to actually help a candidate like you win an election?
yeah. Well, TJ, I think what we have to do is show solutions. It's not simply finding the nearest TV camera and microphone and jumping in front of it and beating our chest and pointing out problems and blaming the other guy. We have to show that we can deliver for the American people. And one of the things that we can do and need to do right away is fix the funding for Social Security and Medicare. What we're hearing from the other side is, oh, we're just going to let it run out and everyone will get a benefit reduction as a result. Or we're going to privatize it, or we're going to do one of a million other bad ideas. Social Security and Medicare are essential for this country. They came about 80, 90 years ago, and they have been so successful for taking care of our elderly, taking care of the people that are in need of those benefits. And it's a system where people pay into it, and they should get the benefit of the bargain that they have toiled their lives under. And the way we do that is by fixing the funding of it. We have given businesses a huge tax break through the Big Beautiful Bill and the tax cuts back in 2017. Their corporate tax rates have fallen dramatically. What we need to do is increase the employer contributions for Social Security and Medicare, the FICA taxes.
And are you in favor of increasing the cap? I mean, right now, someone who makes $160,000 a year and Warren Buffett pay the same amount going into Social Security. You could simply eliminate the cap and say you're going to pay the same rate of Social Security if you make $10 million a year as if you made $40,000 a year. Are you in favor of that?
I believe the cap should be raised. I think there should be a cap because the benefits that you're getting are linked to what you're putting in. And because we haven't raised wages, we haven't raised the minimum wage that people need to be paid, I think a fair trade-off is to say, okay, employers, you now need to pay more in the employer contribution. So I think the wage base is about 170 now. And so I think if you raise that to like 200, 220, somewhere in there, that probably would help to fix the funding issue if you couple it with an increased contribution from employers. And by doing that, TJ, what you can also do is you can shift the employee wage base that is subject to the FICA tax. And so instead of saying it's from $1, what if we shifted it so it's from after the first $20,000 or after the first $40,000? If you did that, that would obviously reduce the amount of money going into the Social Security Trust Fund, but it would also give a huge cash benefit to the recipients. Everyone would receive additional dollars. And so if you were only making $40,000 a year, oftentimes the FICA taxes are the only taxes that you're paying. And so if you were exempt from FICA on the first 40,000.
And yet Republicans would say that person pays no tax because it's not officially an income tax, and yet it is.
Well, yes, it's based upon their income, but what you could do is by shifting it, they would have an extra $3,000 in their pocket. That's a huge benefit for someone making $40,000 a year. Now, if you said it was only 20,000, the first 20,000 is exempt. Well, that's roughly $1,500 a year they would have extra in their pocket. And so that's a huge percentage of additional cash that folks would have to spend, and everyone would enjoy that benefit. So I'm not saying it's only for those making 40,000 or less. It's for all the employees. And so everyone would enjoy that benefit, and that would definitely help the affordability crisis in America.
Now, what do you say to someone like a Scott Galloway? He's the host of Raging Moderates, very well-known podcaster, is a Democrat. He makes the point, he says, the last thing he's worried about is Social Security. He says politicians are so craven, they'll shut down every school and every road before they stop giving senior citizens money because senior citizens vote. They have the political clout. Same with Medicare. He says the real problem in our government system is we're constantly allocating resources from the least wealthy, young people, to older people. I mean, let's face it, Michael, if Social Security disappears tomorrow, you and I are going to be fine. Medicare disappears tomorrow, you and I are going to be fine. But maybe your sons or other kids in their 20s and 30s, they can't even get a down payment scraped together for their first home. What can be done to really help young people? Because I do buy into this argument that the United States federal government, at least, spends disproportionately way too much money on the wealthiest demographic we have, which is senior citizens. And it's become increasingly harder for young people in their 20s and 30s to really get beyond that desperate level of how do I pay for last month's rent?
Well, another great question, TJ. And Scott Galloway is so thoughtful, and he's definitely one of the folks that I follow. He and Heather Cox Richardson, Robert Reich, these are people that are speaking out and presenting good, sound ideas for us all to be thinking about, because they're presenting ideas that aren't coming out of Washington. And it's ideas like theirs that I hope to bring to Washington when I'm elected. I'll say that I do disagree with Scott Galloway on this topic because yes, the young people are struggling, but as we talked about earlier, we're all part of that Alice demographic, and they will grow out of it if the country continues to prosper and we provide the pathways for them to succeed. They too will be elderly one day. They too will need Social Security and Medicare. And yes, you and I are fortunate and we'll get by just fine without it, but we can't act based upon our personal situations. We need to be thoughtful of the entire country, all demographics. And
what can be done specifically about the issue of housing? Because I mean, in the late 1980s, I bought my first house in North Florida over in Tallahassee, and it was, I thought, a pretty nice house, front yard, backyard, two bedrooms. It cost me $27,000. You could not buy a driveway today for $27,000. And the difference is, you used to be able to buy a house for about 2.2 times your yearly income, and now it's like 8 times your yearly income. And so many young Americans just feel like it's impossible to ever even get a down payment. What can be done for those people?
There are lots of things that can and should be done on this issue. We probably don't have enough time in this podcast to talk about all the things, TJ, but the first thing is the tariffs. The tariffs are driving up the cost of all imported goods, whether it's kitchen cabinets or other building materials for the construction of the home. They're going through the roof. That needs to be stopped. The second thing is we need to basically stop real estate investment trust and other institutions from competing with young families buying their first home. There are too many people that are losing out on buying their homes because we have these Wall Street backed institutions that are competing and outbidding. They are favored by the tax code, and they do lots of good in so many areas. but single family residences is an area where they shouldn't be competing for existing single family properties. Now, I'll point out that if they want to build apartments or build single family residences, that's great. More power to them. But we shouldn't be allowing them to go into the existing residential communities and outbid families for these homes. Now, the number of homes that they own is fairly small, about 1% of the existing housing stock. But 1% can skew the prices. And if we say they can no longer be buying these homes, and if they have to divest themselves of these homes, that'll dramatically reduce the price of single family residences.
I'm sympathetic to that argument, but as a practical matter, in a free market system, in a capitalistic system, how do you then pick and choose and say, well, this business can buy a house? Because let's face it, a lot of individuals just create their own LLC. They want one extra house. And this other business over here can't. Are you just going to arbitrarily say if you have a market cap of more than $1 billion, you're not allowed? How do you do that?
Well, one of the things is you can change the tax code, and REITs are creatures of the tax code, and simply saying that purchasing new or existing single family residences is not a permitted investment. Incomes from those properties is considered bad income. So that's one way of. Another way you could do it is to simply limit the amount of appreciation that institutions could enjoy, far as a number of properties or something along those lines. So there's creative ways to go about doing this. But TJ, there's also ways that housing can be addressed as far as encouraging different views on housing. We have so many cookie cutter subdivisions going in that are going further and further away from sources of employment, away from the urban core. And if we can look at ways to bring more density into our communities, I believe that will address the cost of living quite a bit. Transportation cost would go down. The city's cost to maintain infrastructure going out to service these new subdivisions being created would be impacted. Now, we need a mixture of all, but I think we need to view what we can do to encourage more urban development as well. We have zombie shopping centers, 80 acres or so are scattered throughout so many of our communities that could be repurposed into attractive multi-use housing that we need to give thought to that as well. The state actors, they could look at the way documentary stamp taxes are charged on single family residences. That could be a source of making housing more affordable as well. So there's lots of things that can be done, TJ.
You're watching and listening to Filtered with TJ Walker. This is the show where we look at the top stories of the day, business, technology, economics, and culture stories, and analyze it through the filter of communication skills and personal development skills. We're going to have more in a moment after this commercial word with congressional candidate Michael Kirwan and talking about the political dynamics, the incumbent in that race. So stay tuned, back in a moment. Filtered is brought to you by the following. You don't need a new degree. You don't need another expensive coach. You need the right communication habits, and I'll teach them to you in just a few minutes a day. At MediaTrainingWorldwide.com, I've created the most comprehensive library of online communication and personal development courses anywhere. You'll learn public speaking, media training, persuasion, executive presence, and more. These are the same methods I've taught to world leaders, but now they're affordable and accessible to everyone. You can start for free and upgrade anytime. Go now to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Confidence isn't a personality trait, it's a skill, and it's trainable. Most people can't afford a full-time coach, and even if you could, good luck finding one who's available when you need them. That's why I created the TJ Walker AI clone. It's built on my 40-plus years of real-world coaching and training. You get my exact advice, style, and frameworks instantly. Ask it how to handle a tough question. Get feedback on your elevator pitch. Rehearse your next big talk. This is the next generation of communication coaching. It's smarter than an app, more personal than a course, and always ready. Start using it today at tjwalker.ai. You'll wonder how you ever did without it. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. We are back. This is Filtered. I'm your host, TJ Walker. Our special guest today is U.S. congressional candidate Michael Kirwan, and we're speaking to him. He has just tossed his hat into the ring for the 4th Congressional District. This is a part of Northern Florida, incorporating a lot of Jacksonville. The incumbent is Aaron Bean. He is a longtime political figure in Northeast Florida. Let's tell you a little more about him and his career. He served in the House and Senate, the State House and the State Senate. He rose to the position of Senate President Pro Tem, and he chaired the Health and Human Services and Appropriations Subcommittee in the U.S. House. He sits on the Education and Workforce Committee and leads its subcommittee on early childhood, elementary, and secondary education. We all know education is near and dear to the heart of this current administration. Bean won his first congressional race with a very impressive 60.5% of the vote. He won re-election with 57%, his challenger getting 42%. So Mike, let's not beat around the bush. How do you beat a politician like this? Because he is not new to the game. He's a political animal, and I don't mean that necessarily in a disparaging way. He has worked his way up the political pole of North Florida, the State House, the State Senate, U.S. Congress. Where is someone like this vulnerable? Because he's not someone like a Congresswoman Boebert, who's caught doing obscene things and saying stupid things all the time and doing things in movie theaters. He's not someone who is a gaffe machine. He's not someone like a Matt Gaetz, who is caught cavorting with teenage girls and doing all sorts of vile activities. How do you beat a guy like this?
Well, I think my path to victory is actually pretty clear, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to happen. So I think we can approach this on a couple of different ways. Far as looking at just the individual, that's the incumbent, I think all the voters have.
And I should point out, there is a Democratic primary.
That's right.
And, based on fundraising, a lot of people are, I sound like Trump now, a lot of people are saying you're the front runner, but based on your community involvement, your fundraising, other things, you're clearly one of the top candidates for the Democratic primary. Let's assume for a moment you get that. How do you beat an incumbent like Aaron Bean, who seems like he's not particularly controversial? I doubt many people wake up in the morning thinking, wow, he's the worst guy ever.
Yeah, so I think it's actually a fairly easy decision for voters. And, in the history of elections, this is an easy decision, I think, for voters, because my candidate or my opponent, the incumbent here, I think you simply need to view him as for what he is. He's a rubber stamp. He's not going to bring any of his own ideas. He's not going to bring any new ideas. He is simply rubber stamping whatever the administration presents, whatever the higher ups in Congress present, whatever his PAC contributors present. He is not going to bring his own ideas. And so voters, if they're happy with a rubber stamp as their representative, well, vote for the incumbent. That's an easy, no-brainer decision. But if you want someone that is actually going to represent you, exercise independent judgment, well, then I am the candidate. Voters, if they're unhappy with the rubber stamp, they simply need to assess whether I share their values, whether I have the integrity to do the right thing, and whether they have confidence that I can represent them. I believe I possess those qualities, and I believe I'll convince voters of that. So I think it's a very simple decision for voters in this election. But, the political scientists, the consultants out there aren't going to be satisfied with that answer. So let's talk about the numbers for a second. It's considered a +5 district by the Cook report. That means,
And for our viewers who don't follow politics that closely, tell them exactly what that means.
that simply means that of all the congressional districts, this district tends to vote Republican 5% more than the average congressional district. Now, 5% is not an insurmountable number by any stretch. The Republicans, as part of their playbook, want to emphasize that, oh, we've got a +5 seat. That's insurmountable. So everyone just go home. You don't need to vote. You don't need to think about this seat. It's a safe seat. Well, that's a bunch of hooey, okay? People change their mind. People will cross the party aisle, and they're going to do it this time. So looking at the numbers, let's dive into the numbers for a second. We've got a district that is roughly 42% Republican, 37% Democrat, and 21% independent. That's a large percentage of the district are independents. And this is playing out throughout the country. Okay, these numbers are not that different from any of the other districts that you're seeing. Obviously, the Republican Democratic numbers will flip depending upon the state and where you're at. But I believe I'm going to get probably 2/3 of the independents to vote for me. And I'm going to get over 5% of the Republicans.
Why do you think you'd get 2/3?
Because they are the ones that are dissatisfied, and they're the ones that are ping-ponging between the parties, looking for a better tomorrow. And they're unhappy. We've got over 5 million people showing up from a No Kings protest. They are largely a large percentage of those people that are showing up. And so
let's dive a little deeper here.
Sure.
What is the level of unhappiness? Because let's face it, your district did vote for Trump too, right? They voted for him for president, not Biden and not
Sure.
Harris. So are they unhappy enough yet to really change? I mean, I've seen polls nationwide showing with all the daily atrocities we're subjected to from this administration. I've certainly seen some polls in the last few months saying if the election were held again, we'd have the same result. So if people are perhaps amused by one particular story and don't agree with the story, but still favor Team Red Hat or Team Orange Face, then why vote out the guy who rubber stamps that?
Well, I think you're going to see greater discontent. It's growing every day. I'm feeling there's more and more voters that are changing sides as far as, yes, I'm a registered Republican, they might be thinking, but I'm going to go against the aisle because I'm not signing up for a one-party state. I'm not signing up for a king. I'm not signing up for this authoritarian. And Congress is not providing the proper checks on the president's power. So I feel a lot of that. I see that through the people that are donating to my campaign. There's been a number of Republicans. A number of Republicans have told me that, yes, we'll support you. We're going to, some have even switched parties. So I'm hoping that we'll see more of that. I think everything from the ICE raids are becoming more extreme. The concept of ICE raiding churches, houses of worship, healthcare centers, courthouses. There's no decency. Schools. These are not places where ICE should be focused on. These are
and as of El Paso, Texas, they're killing family dogs.
Yeah.
So
Why?
I'm surprised that hasn't gotten bigger play because people seem to love their dogs more than they do people quite often. And now ICE has been accused of, and it's been reported by Fox in El Paso, Texas, that ICE officials actually killed a family dog unprovoked.
You know, we need to have secure borders. We need to know who is entering into the country and regulate who's entering. But we have a situation where we have people that have been in this country for 20 years. They have integrated into our communities. They're part of our life. To say they now have to be expelled, their property confiscated, that's ridiculous. Having unmasked people or having masked people that are not identified in unmarked cars, picking random people up off the street, that's not America. That's not what we believe in. That is a scary movie. We know how those movies end, and people aren't tolerating that. And that's just one incident or one example
Is
of,
it filtering out though? Because for a long time, let's face it, you and I know people say, yeah, but it's not people who look like you and me. It's, people who just got off a boat somewhere, or they look like they don't speak English, or their skin is really brown. But now it's happening to everyone. I mean, if you can try to put Comey in prison, why not everyone else? If you can shoot in the head a white minister. I'm sorry to point out his race, but I do think it's relevant here. If you can
right.
shoot a white minister in the head with a pepper ball, who is safe?
Yeah. Just drop the mask and identify yourself. I mean, do we really have this fear that there are such repercussions out there? I mean, our police don't wear masks. Wearing a mask allows a side of that person to come out, an unpleasant side. People do things that are reprehensible when they're not being identified. And that needs to stop. That's not who we are. We've got lots of concerning developments happening across the country and abroad. Venezuela, if the president has a case for going to war with Venezuela, well, let's hear it. Let's have it presented to Congress and let's officially declare war if that's what we should do. But to unilaterally engage our military like is happening is not what's permitted under our Constitution. We need to be
Well, apparently anything is permitted if you've got the Supreme Court in your hip pocket and every Republican in the Senate and the House is afraid to cross you.
yeah.
Apparently you can do absolutely anything you want. You can, in fact, be king. I mean, he is proving that on a daily basis.
That's why this election is so important.
Michael, it's a cliche to say, "Oh, this election is the most important election ever." You and I have heard it every election of our life. This time, it's actually true. It actually is true. I mean, I hope there isn't a fair and honest election. My biggest concern, frankly, is that we see things like the shooting of the minister in the head. We see that in swing political districts and swing precincts across the country. And it does sway the election because it's not as if Trump actually has to formally make the Democratic Party illegally or formally cancel elections. He can just put his thumb on things, just changing 5% in a handful of districts, and he'll be able to keep control. So I do happen to think this really is the most important election in our country's history, primarily because I think it could be the last election. If the Democrats do not take back the House, I don't think we're going to have a 2028 election. I really don't. And I realize to some that sounds hyperbolic. I think they're living in a fantasy world. Trump has said by his own admission, his only regret from his first term is leaving office. He wished I believe him. Every once in a while, he does say the truth. Let's focus some more on some tactical political issues because and I should point out, I'm not an official paid campaign consultant to you. I'm not working for you in any official capacity, but I have worked with a lot of Democratic candidates for office in congressional districts. Some have won beating incumbents, but the ones who did, it was typically because the week before the election, the incumbent was caught beating his wife, literally. It typically caused it turns out they didn't pay their taxes for 10 years. It typically was a situation where voters felt like, okay, this person has specifically betrayed our trust. We will fire them. You typically don't see a member of Congress who's not seen as extreme outside of their party, who's not doing illegal things, who's not making a fool out of themselves. You don't typically see those people voted out of office unless it's some sort of a wave election, which does happen every so often, happened in 1974. Do you think this will be a wave election? And will you need that in order to win?
Well, I think it will be a wave election. I think you've pointed out a number of disturbing issues about will the administration allow the elections to be fair. Mid-decade gerrymandering, redrawing of districts is concerning. It's an example of politicians picking their voters and not voters picking their representatives. I think this election is really about voting for this path this administration is taking us on or a rejection of that path. I don't think the incumbent's personality, I don't think the incumbent's track record, his prior history matter. I don't think he has done anything that merits overcoming a referendum on this administration. And it's clear we need to take back the House. And that's why I'm running.
Let's talk about some particular challenges of running as a candidate in the current and political environment. In the past history of this country, whether you're Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, independent, you can go to people, make the case, and say, will you donate to my campaign? There's an extra wrinkle, as you know, right now, because now if someone is thinking of giving money to any political campaign, yours or others, now they have to think about, okay, am I going to get audited by this IRS from this administration? Am I going to be put on a terrorist watch list because I contributed to some centrist or some moderate politician who's not favored by the great orange one? How do you deal with that in the current environment?
Well, I think that is a fear that some people have, and I think there's no denying that. I hope that it's not true. I hope that's an unfounded fear, but there are definitely repercussions that the Republican Party definitely tries to enforce on people that support Democrats. I think that alone should give people the courage and the fortitude to say, no, I'm not going to tolerate that. That's not how I want to live my life. And that's not how this country should operate. If we're going to have that type of political repression, that type of illegality, we need to stand up. And that's why I'm running, TJ. We've got to stop this.
Now, we were recording this the day before the No Kings movement. What sort of turnout are you anticipating in your community? Will you be a part of it? And I'm assuming you're not the kind of guy. I mean, you and I are both too young to have protested, not more. And I'm assuming you're not a big protest guy in general. Give me your assessment of this organization and this event.
Well, I think it is a wonderful event because it allows the American people to show peacefully their discontent with what's going on. I think the leaders in Washington should hopefully realize this level of discontent and change course. And I would welcome the Republicans in office to change course and do the right thing based upon this outpouring of protest. I was planning on attending the protest, but unfortunately, my father-in-law has passed away, and the funeral is tomorrow. So I'll be.
Well, my condolences to you and your family.
But I will be at the next one, and I'll be at as many as are scheduled. We need to peacefully show that things have to change.
Yeah. Now, since we are a podcast and we're not worried about a 30-second soundbite for the evening NBC News, we can go a little bit into the weeds of actual mechanics for campaigns that maybe some people don't care about. But what is it going to cost to run a successful campaign? I mean, you hear congressional campaigns these days, people spend, sometimes $30-40 million. What are you anticipating? And what is your message to funders at this stage?
Well, unfortunately, these campaigns have become expensive, and in part, it's the price of media. And the media has a vested interest in sort of stoking the tensions and making this into a race that people get passionate about. I think there's reason to be passionate about this one. Whether the prior elections were stoked too far, that's another topic for another time. But to successfully run a campaign against an incumbent, you need at least $1.5 million to be raised. Northeast Florida, it would be nice to have 3 million or 3.5 million to go against an incumbent. But somewhere in that range, I think, is what a candidate needs to raise in order to have a credible race with an expectation of defeating this incumbent. And I would say that I'm off to a great start. I've raised $250,000 in 2 weeks. It's in part due to my network of friends and supporters over my professional and civic life. but also due to the discontent people have with what's out there. And the message to the potential donors is we need to win. We need the support in order to make a credible campaign and to oust this incumbent and to take back the House. There are so many political contributors that basically only want to back a winner, that basically say, well, when the polls show you're going to win, well, then I'll contribute. Well, that's too late. We can't afford you to be sitting on the sidelines. If you believe that democracy needs to be protected, if you believe that this administration is taking us down a path that is destructive and not helpful for this country, you got to donate. You got to get off the sideline. You got to part with some dollars here. And I will deploy those dollars in a very effective manner.
Tell us about your fundraising strategy, high dollar, low dollar events, that sort of thing.
Well, I think we're doing the typical campaign fundraising, far as I'm reaching out to individual donors. I'm on the phone 2 hours a day, most days, making individual calls. We're having a number of fundraisers where people are kind enough to open up their homes and host their friends and people that are interested in the campaign. It's a great way for me to meet people and interact, answer their questions, and allow people to feel confident that I'm their candidate and that they can leave a check and that'll be used well.
And we should point out, you do have a website, Vote Kirwan, KIRWAN.com. And it does allow, there's a big donate button right there. You click it and you can pay with a credit card. Yeah, you can go ahead and pay $7,000 or you can pay $50. So it's never been easier to raise money and to use media tools like websites. You mentioned social media a moment ago, or paid media. Social media is obviously reaching or growing in its importance. And it does seem to be an area where Trump has been a master. I mean, let's not forget, when he ran in 2016, he was heavily outspent by most of the other 17 prominent Republican senators and congressmen and governors who ran against him. He didn't win because he had the most money or spent the most money. He did it because he consistently said interesting, provocative messages that resonated with that base, and he got 20 times more media attention than anyone else. And it's not just a partisan thing. We've seen recently in the New York City mayor's race where Zohran Mamdani was heavily outspent. One of, I think, again, 17 candidates, heavily outspent. And he just destroyed the field and beat an incumbent, or not an incumbent, but an entrenched mayor, as well as a former governor, Andrew Cuomo, just destroyed them in the polls. Most give credit to his ability to capture attention through social media and interesting, engaging messages he had, and a single-handed focus on that affordability. What plans do you have for really, because let's face it, you and I are not the TikTok generation. What are you going to do to really capture attention of citizens in your community using social media when they're all bombarded in their feeds of getting information from Fox News and Newsmax and Breitbart and the War Room? They're already getting inundated with social media, predisposing them to help the incumbent. How are you going to cut through that clutter?
Well, another great question, TJ. Social media is also a way for a challenger to overcome some of the incumbent's advantages, because social media, while it has a cost, is so much cheaper than traditional media. Television ads are very expensive. But social media is a way to get in front of a lot of people at a much cheaper price than television ads. And so we will be using much more social media going forward. And my campaign as the strategy is to basically turn a lot of attention to that after the holidays. Between now and the holidays, we're going to be focused primarily on a listening tour, meeting voters, hearing what their issues are, understanding what the problems are that they want to have addressed, as well as raising dollars to fund the campaign. As you alluded to, you and I are of an age where social media is not a natural part of our life and our skill set. So my social media,
although I'm trying to learn, I am posting on every social media outlet a dozen times a day. I'm trying to learn, but I'm still
sure.
not the master. There's no doubt.
Sure. So my social media posts are pretty much simply events that I've attended, where I've gone, etc. We're going to be adding messaging to that and providing more content after the holidays. Whether that's too late, who knows? Hopefully not. But that's the strategy that we're going to be following.
So, Michael, and our guest today again is Michael Kirwan, candidate for the 4th Congressional District in Congress in Florida, the northeastern part of Florida. Every candidate really has two resources. They have money and they have time. You have a lot of time. You're all in on this. You've had a very successful career as a tech entrepreneur and as an attorney. You're now focusing 100% on this. How do you spend your time campaigning at this stage of a campaign?
Well, I'm so glad I made the decision to retire last month. The very next day, I launched the campaign because I don't think you can really do justice to your legal practice nor to a campaign if you're trying to juggle both. And I am all in because that's just my nature. I go all in on things that I care about. And this race is too important not to be all in. And so I basically am spending at least 2 hours a day on the phone. Then I'm spending additional time going to coffee. I'm drinking an inordinate amount of coffee these days.
Well, you do look alert. That's good.
And just responding to emails. And there are so many people out there that have ideas and that want me to win. And they're investing in my campaign, not only monetarily, but also by saying, hey, you need to meet X, or have you thought about Y? Or, I really think you should be addressing this topic. And some people are very critical too. It's sort of fun in that I can't believe you didn't address this. If you want to win, you got to address this topic. And they're passionate, and that's great. And I'm learning all the time. I entered this race thinking I really knew the issues, but the more I interact with people, I realize there's additional issues out there that I wasn't aware of. And it's been very eye-opening, and it's making me a better candidate and a better person. So.
Well, we appreciate your time, Michael. We're going to close out the interview in just a moment with a final question. But for people who want to know more about you or how to contribute or where you are in issues, they can go to the website, votekirwan.com, vote, KIRWAN.com. It's kind of a thought experiment for our last question here today. Imagine I am a 40-year-old who lives in your district. I have some kind of a blue collar. Let's say I make $55,000 a year. I have 2 kids and a spouse, and I like to hunt. I like football. I'm not particularly a political person, but I don't have any friend who looks like me, and I'm a white guy and I go to church. And I don't have any friends who didn't vote for the orange guy. I don't have any friends who've even voted for a Democrat in the last 3 elections. What is your message to me? Let's say you knock on my door. And I'm a friendly person. I'm open-minded. It's just that's the environment I'm in. I mean,
Yep.
I don't even remember if I voted for Beam before, but I probably did. I want you to talk to me now for the next couple of minutes and give me your best pitch.
Sure. Well, before I give you that pitch, let me share with you and your audience that to win, you got to get 50 plus 1%. Okay. I just have to get over 50% to win. And there's a base of voters, some say 30, some say 35%, that are MAGA supporters, and that'll be MAGA supporters for life. And if I don't convert them, that's okay. I'll still represent them when I win, but I've got 65% of the other voters that'll support me. And that's all you need to win the race. And I'm going to try to convert voters like you just described. But if I don't, there is still a path to victory here. And I'm still going to represent 100% of the constituents of the 4th Congressional District. We're not going to win 100% of the voters. And I realize that. And I'm operating like I want to, but I'm not saying, oh, I'm not going for it because I'll never convert Joe to my side. There's too many other voters. There's too many other reasons to run this race and to win this race. So getting back to your voter, I would basically say, we have a lot of similarities. We grew up in this area that we call home. This is a wonderful place to raise a family. We both go to church. We have a lot of the same shared values. You like to hunt. I like to skeet shoot. We have a lot of similarities, I'm sure, if we just spent the time talking about the things we hold in common. And I would hope that in the course of this conversation, you can detect that I'm a man of integrity, I'm a man of values, and I'm thoughtful. And I'll represent you as issues come up in DC. I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. I'm going to do what's best for everyone. And I hope you would consider supporting me.
Great, Michael. Thanks so much. And again, personal disclosure for my audience. I'm not here as an objective journalist today. I'm a huge fan of Michael Kirwan. I've known him for going on 45 years. And I do think he is truly a man of integrity who really could, it sounds so hyperbolic to say, but his vote, if he becomes a member of Congress, could really literally be the difference of us having a democracy or not. And that's why I think it's so important. So if you're looking for candidates to maybe change this regime and send a message to end this tyranny, give him a close look. Consider voting for him if you're in his district. Consider donating to him. I have. I urge you to consider doing that and spread the word. Michael Kirwan, next time you're here on this show, I hope I can call you a different name. I hope I can call you Congressman Michael Kirwan. Thanks for joining us today.
TJ, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so much.